In the One Piece community, there is an ongoing discussion about who will be Luffy's final opponent. And even if there is an extensive list of antagonists inside the series, we all know who the main 3 antagonists are for Luffy. And so as you can see on the thumbnail, it's Emu, Sakazuki and Blackbeard. And so in this video, I'm going to go over every single reason why either of them should be Luffy's final antagonist, and by the end, I'm going to go over who I believe is going to be the final antagonist of One Piece. But before we get into the video, if you guys enjoy content like this, you guys know what to do. Hit that like button and subscribe, as I do post content like this, and to be honest, it's a win-win. You guys show support and I'll upload more content like this in the near future. Whether it's One Piece, other anime, or just fiction in general, in due time I plan to cover it, so be there when I go there. But I feel like that's enough of my rambling. Why don't we get into the video and find out who is the true final villain of One Piece. To begin the video, I want to start this off by covering Sakazuki, then I'll get into Blackbeard, then I'll get into Emu. Now Sakazuki does have a reason for being Luffy's final antagonist, and it's pretty simple. With him ruling the Marines and him also killing Ace and leaving that lifelong scar on Luffy, it does build up a lot of tension between them, and so when they see each other, it's gonna be on sight. Now this is where people would usually just be like, okay cool, that's most of the reasons for why they want to fight each other, if not all the reasons, but I do believe there's an extra reason that we can throw in there. And I believe the main reason they would even fight, and the main reason Oda would even take it there, is due to their ideologies and how Sakazuki and Luffy view the world. Sakazuki is all about eradicating all pirates that there are out there, while Luffy just wants freedom, and I feel like that is going to clash. And to be honest, we don't know the full reason behind why Sakazuki hates pirates so much, but obviously we're gonna have to attribute it to pirates doing something to him in his past. And so because of that, Luffy being the pirate king is the last thing he wants, so that is a reason why he could be there in Luffy's way to stop him. Now while I go through these characters, I also want to introduce things that may go against them fighting Luffy, and with Sakazuki we obviously have other opponents that he could face. And as we know, Sakazuki has killed Ace right in front of Luffy, and obviously he's given him that scar, but another thing we could throw into the mix is the fact that he may have ongoing beef with Dragon. Now I know you may be like, oh but that's Dragon's beef, but it's like Sakazuki still sees it as it wrapping into Luffy as well, as in Marineford he kept calling him Dragon's son. Now it's only a theory for now, but it is a very solid theory that I do believe could be true. And as we know, Luffy is at the forefront of the worst generation, and as we know, Sakazuki absolutely despises the worst generation. So this could only just fuel his hatred for Luffy, and Luffy already has a bag of things that he hates Akainu for. All in all, there are a bunch of reasons for them two to fight each other, but I also want to go over the other people that could fight Sakazuki and just how the story could play out to where he can't fight Luffy. Now aside the fandom, it is commonly discussed whether Sabo and Sakazuki will meet up and fight. Now although a lot of people may dismiss it, I do think it's a massive possibility, as we have seen that Ace can influence Sabo, and Sabo did gain his memories back from Sakazuki killing Ace, and so that also leaves something on Sabo as well. As much as he did leave a scar on Luffy, he then unlocked something inside of Sabo, and so that is why Sabo is here. Also, there is a comment that Sakazuki does make against Ace, and that is the fact that Ace's devil fruit is weaker than his, so obviously his is always going to win. So it would be kind of poetic to see Sabo beating Sakazuki with that one devil fruit that he said could never beat him. And so with these two being options, a lot of people like to look at it and say, well, Luffy should be it because he was the one that was there and saw him get killed and whatnot, but in my eyes, I don't really care who does it between these two, as I believe Sabo has as much as a reason as Luffy. I mean, he's inherited Ace's devil fruit, and he's obviously been able to be influenced by Ace, and also by that, with that statement from Sakazuki inside of Marineford, I feel like it would just be nice to see that happen. Now Luffy and Sabo aren't the only two people that I believe can take down Akainu. I do believe that there are other people inside the Marines that could actually do it. One person I believe that could do it is Fujitora. Now I don't believe it's as likely as Luffy and Sabo, but I do believe it's up there in probability. Through every interaction they've had, there's been a little bit of hostility there, and especially on Dressrosa where the ideals clashed. I feel like this is something where in the end I feel like these two could end up in a scrap. It's clear Fujitora wants them to go one way while Sakazuki wants them to go the other way, so I wouldn't be surprised if in the end they do meet up and they do have a fight. As I do believe that Fujitora does follow the exact same sort of justice as Kuzan and Garp, it would be very interesting to see how the two extremes fight and clash and see which one comes out on top this time. This fight is mainly built off of the premises of their ideals. It isn't built off of anything else, like there isn't anything traumatic that they've done to each other, but I just feel like the two things that they both stand for just cannot stay together, and so in due time they may clash and something may happen. Now somebody else that's completely out of left field that I know a lot of you guys are going to be surprised if you're bringing up is Kobe. Now Kobe's one is definitely one of the lowest ones, but I do believe that he does have a mini argument for it. In Marineford, Kobe and Akainu have this little exchange. Now I feel like this little exchange is probably the most overlooked exchanges in the whole series, but I personally love it as we get to see their ideals clash as well, and once again it's the battle of the two extremes. Once again it's a 5 ideologies. One is obviously with just the complete eradication of pirates, and the other one is like, no, let's just see how they are. If they're bad, then we take them out, but if they're not, then obviously we just shut it down. The main reason I feel like this ideology clash could happen is because of Kuzan versus Sakazuki, and Kuzan is also somebody that I believe could come back and try to fight him as well. We also have Smoker as well, but Smoker I'm going to push him to the side a little bit more, but Kuzan, Fujitaro and Kobe are people that I do believe that could fight Sakazuki as well. Kuzan, Fujitaro and Kobe are all ideology based fights. Now I do believe that Fujitaro does have the most likely chance, and that is mainly because I can see him in a Fleet Admiral spot over the other two. Now I know you may be thinking, what, over Kuzan who was trying to be appointed the next Fleet Admiral? Yeah, 100%. You see this in Dressrosa where he conducts himself well, and you see how he talks to his soldiers. He likes to obviously respect everyone and give the respect where it's due, while people like Sakazuki don't really like doing that. I don't know, I just view Fujitaro more as a leader than Kuzan. That may seem kind of crazy, but if you look at how he talks to his men and now you see how Kuzan talks to his men, like with Kuzan falling asleep and whatnot, he seems more of a Garp type of person instead of a Fujitaro who's commanding people and telling people what to do just off of his own judgment alone. But everybody here, I do feel like Ace's brothers do have the most probability and likelihood to fight Sakazuki in the end, and this is mainly due to the lingering effects that Sakazuki has put on both of them. Luffy has a scar and Sabo has Ace's devil fruit. And so with that being said, why don't I move to the next section and talk about Blackbeard. Now Blackbeard's reason for fighting Luffy is far more straightforward and right in front of your face, as when they first meet they literally have the opposite opinions of the food that they were eating, so it's kind of like it's shoved in your face that these two just are opposite people. And past that point, Blackbeard has done many heinous things to Luffy that people kind of look at but they don't really look at. If you think about it, Blackbeard does have some sort of beef with everybody that Luffy is related to. He's got Ace executed, he's raided Dragon's base, he's captured Garp, he's gonna fight Shanks. And so it's kind of like when you factor in all these different things and just obviously him and Luffy just having beef in general, it is something that we have to look out for and be like, well, yeah, they're gonna clash in the future. I believe the main reason for their fight, aside from Ace, I feel like it's just how they view the world and their ideology as a whole. Aside from the very obvious, oh yeah, Blackbeard is just anti-Luffy. Well, Blackbeard wants to create a world or just wants to be a part of something where it's like he has some sort of rulership, while Luffy doesn't want that. He doesn't want to conquer anything and he just wants to be free. Nika makes Luffy extremely happy, and Blackbeard has the ability to take that away from him. And obviously we do have the very obvious color aesthetic that clashes against each other, the light versus the darkness. I know this is very random, but it's kind of like Luffy did eat the Nika fruit just as like a random, he was just hungry, while Blackbeard was aiming for the Yami fruit as well. So it's kind of like they got their fruits from different perspectives. Luffy got it from when he was young, but Blackbeard waited all that time in his life just to grab the darkness fruit. The way they get their powers and the way they just do things inside of the story, Luffy's is very just random, sporadic, freedom. He just does everything that he wants to, while Blackbeard is very thought out and he's like, well, I have to do this, that and the third. And so it's like everything they do completely contrasts the other person, but in that exact same light, it's very similar. And you could say that Blackbeard does force himself to be like Rocks, while Luffy is just unintentionally like Roger. And so as I said in the beginning, it's just the 5 ideologies and how they view the world as a whole. Now, I don't believe that there is anybody else that is going to defeat Blackbeard in that period of time. Now, I know Shanks is going to probably fight him, but I don't think Shanks is going to defeat Blackbeard. I'm sorry to tell you Shanks fans, but yeah, he's probably going to die. And so that would obviously fuel Luffy up even more, but there's something else that I want to cover that Blackbeard could do that's very, very ingenious that could lead him to find Luffy in the end. Now, as we know, Blackbeard is a D member. Now, we know every single person with the D did go up against Emu in the past. Now, my whole theory behind it is Blackbeard wants to get to Emu. I don't know how he's got that information, but let's say he's gotten it, since we do know that he has some sort of information on the Gorosei. So what if he's able to obviously get into Marigewa, do whatever, and see Emu, and he's able to defeat Emu, and he then takes Emu's spot? It sounds extremely crazy, but I don't think that's out of the possibility for Blackbeard. You've seen what Blackbeard could do, and that is something that Blackbeard is extremely capable of. And so with that being said, since I just talked about Emu, why don't I get into Emu? Now, although Emu was introduced latest into the story out of these three, I do believe that a lot of people would think that Emu was going to be the final boss, and I'm going to explain why. Exactly like Blackbeard, Emu does encapsulate everything Luffy hates, but I feel like Emu does it to a T. While Blackbeard is a pirate, Emu is just somebody that Luffy absolutely would despise if he ever knew about them. But before we even get into Emu's ideologies and whatnot, if we just look at their whole design and aesthetic and everything, it's extremely different to Luffy's and how Luffy operates. With their whole aesthetics clashing, with Luffy being very light and Emu being especially dark. With Blackbeard, yes, he is dark, but Emu is completely blacked out, and there is a complete contrast between him and Luffy. And then when you look at their powers, Luffy is meant to be a god while Emu seems to be some sort of demon. When you then go past this point and look at their ideologies, you then get to understand why these two are meant to clash. Luffy likes freedom and he wants everybody to be free. He doesn't want people starving, he doesn't want anything bad happening to anybody. But Emu, on the other hand, is totally different. Emu is somebody that loves entrapment, and he is basically ensnared and entrapped the whole entire world, and he will do as he pleases with the world, because I feel like he just sees the world as his playground. Leading entire islands just because they didn't want to go under your regime is something that Luffy would absolutely despise once he hears about it. But then when you look past that, Nika's whole origin is about taking down Emu. Now you could say that, oh well, Vegapunk may have been a little bit off, but I do believe that it was mostly correct. Joy Boy obviously had the Nika fruit to then take down Emu, but it didn't go as planned. And so through his demise, obviously we had the poneglyphs and whatnot, and so it feels like the whole story is building up to Luffy finding out about Emu and then going to defeat Emu, because he finds out that Emu's on top of the world and he is what's creating all this tragedy inside the One Piece world. Just everything about them, with obviously Emu being a demon, Luffy being a god, obviously Nika and Emu obviously having this sort of history where Nika was obviously created to defeat Emu. Just how they're framed as characters, where Emu is always shown as somebody that's entrapped, just always shown that he's inside of Marie's world, while Luffy's just out and about exploring the world, being free. And obviously all the poneglyphs, and probably eventually the One Piece then detailing what Emu was doing back in the Void Century, and just everything building up to Luffy finding out about Emu, seeing that he is controlling the world, and he's like, I cannot have true freedom if somebody's going to be on top of the world terrorizing everything. And so it's like, I feel like eventually it's going to reach that point where Luffy's going to be like, no, I need to get rid of this guy right here, right now. I also do have a theory of Joy Boy being the first Monkey D, and so it's like, I feel like it will just fall in line with that theory that I have. If you want to go check that video, you can go check that video, it's pretty good. But while we're here, I also want to follow up on the Blackbeard theory that I did have, and it is clear that Emu does know about Blackbeard, as with Vivi, Luffy, and obviously Blackbeard being on the floor, we do know that Vivi is obviously connected to Lily, and Lily did rebel against Emu. We know that Luffy's there, and obviously Emu must know about the Nika fruit by now. And so Blackbeard, while Blackbeard's on the floor, Emu must know something about the Marshall family that we don't know about. And as I said before, the D-Clan was named the D-Clan because it went up against Emu. Now that doesn't say that every single D-Clan member was a good person. That's not the case. There could be some bad apples in there, and so Emu may know about it, and during the past, you never know. The Marshall clan could have been one of the main clans that were obviously evil and trying to take Emu's spot. And so why don't I just get into who I believe will be Luffy's final opponent. Now these three options are really good options. Now in my eyes, I feel like Sakazuki is the weakest, only because I feel like he doesn't encapsulate what Luffy is trying to be at the end. Yes, he is the fleet admiral, and yes, he is somebody that is very core, and obviously he doesn't want pirates to be around, but somebody else can always take him out. And along with that, Emu and Blackbeard have way better reasons for fighting Luffy, and the ideology side of it is what boosts them above Akainu. And obviously I feel like there are things just with their whole powers in general, both of them being darkness related, one of them cancelling out Luffy's effects, and then the other one obviously just being a demon itself. There's something there that Oda's trying to tell us with these whole like aesthetic and themes and just all their ideologies and whatnot. And so it's like, I feel like these two have more of a chance of being Luffy's final opponents over Sakazuki. But if you want to say that Sakazuki could be, then I'm not too bothered with it. I can get behind it, I can see it. But with the last two, Blackbeard and Emu, whatever happens between those two, because I do believe that Oda is subtly pushing something for them to meet and have some sort of thing that happens. Whether Blackbeard wants to obviously be under Emu or do something, but I really do doubt that. Emu seems to know that Blackbeard is up to something, since he does have him tied on the floor. floor. Now you could say that the Gorosei may have told Emu about Blackbeard and been like, well yeah, Shanks didn't say this, so you maybe need to look out for him, but I doubt that. Blackbeard is an D-Clan member, and we do know that the D-Clan did stand up against Emu, and it's not like he's the only D-Clan member on the sea. If that was the case, Law would be tattered on the floor, but it seems to be like there is something bigger there that everybody's not looking at. Everybody's only focusing on, oh, Vivi was tied up on the floor alongside Luffy. No, Blackbeard's there as well, and we know what Blackbeard's after. Blackbeard is there to try to rule the world, and we do know that. Blackbeard is very, yeah, I want to obviously get my country under something, and I obviously want to get further with obviously his crewmates going there to go and see Saturn. It does lead into something with Emu, and I feel like a lot of people are just missing that. But yeah, I feel like with these two, whoever wins that clash, or even if they do clash, I think they're going to be Luffy's final opponent. But if they don't clash, then I do have somebody that I do think that is going to be Luffy's final opponent. Personally, out of the two of them, I do believe that Emu is more likely to be Luffy's final opponent, only because he does rule the world. Now, if Blackbeard's able to fight him and then take his throne, then yeah, I could see Blackbeard 100% fighting Luffy. But I feel like with the fact that the revolutionary army itself exists, and the fact that they're trying to take over the world government, and we can see that the Blackbeard pirates sort of know what they're doing, so they're trying to be like, okay, maybe we can try to help Emu or something. I feel like it's more of a thing where it's like, with the revolutionary army's existence, it does kind of solidify that Emu has to be the sort of final boss. Now obviously a lot of people do think that Blackbeard and obviously Luffy are going to fight anyway, which I do think is going to happen. I think either way Luffy and Blackbeard are going to fight, and so it then leads into obviously Emu versus Luffy, but we just don't know when in the story it's going to happen, and that's why a lot of people are like, no, Blackbeard has to be the final boss, or no, Emu has to be the final boss. But I do believe that either of them in the end will have a very solid claim. I do believe what's going to happen is we're going to obviously get Luffy moving on from Elbaf. I think there is going to be some sort of massive battle royale for the One Piece, and then once they get the One Piece, I feel like there's going to be something else that they have to do, which is obviously defeating Emu, and that's when the revolutionary army kick in, and that's when everything happens. Now you could say that, oh, the story's meant to end with them getting the One Piece, so where it happens inside the story kind of just makes no sense, because I feel like you can't build up Blackbeard to be such a great villain, we then can't just have Emu introduced into the story to be taken out by Blackbeard. It feels a little bit weird, because then it will just invalidate the whole revolutionary army's whole like objective. So with that being said, there's something that already has to go down, and I feel like the road is going to go down with obviously Luffy again in Blackbeard's way. Obviously you can have him having a small scuffle with Sakazuki. If you want Luffy to fight all three, then that's fine, but I do believe that Sabo would kind of just be an invalid character. He's just there to just appear. I feel like he needs to do something of relevance, and that would be defeating Sakazuki, and then obviously Luffy could fight Emu with Dragon or whatnot. If you want to say that Dragon dies during the fight, that's fine, I'm not really bothered. I don't think Oda's gonna do that, but if you think that's gonna happen and you think that's gonna happen, I'm totally fine with that. I don't really care. But I just feel like something needs to happen where Luffy and Blackbeard have to fight somewhere, because I just feel like you can't build up those two characters for so long for them not to clash, but then you can't also just have Emu introduced and then have him taken out by Blackbeard. I do think the theory is very solid, and I think the theory is probably one of the better theories inside the series, but I feel like if we were just to have Blackbeard take over Emu, it would kind of be pointless in my eyes, since the revolutionary army's whole objective would just get invalidated. And so I feel like what we need to happen is Luffy fights Blackbeard, then we go into Luffy versus Emu, and then that's the story done. But if you disagree, you know what to do, comment down below in the comment section, since this is a very vast topic that everybody can have a say in, because there are many different ways people can view the story, and I am not opposed to anybody's different way of viewing the story. If you believe that Sakazuki is Luffy's end goal, then that is totally up to you. I'm not going to bash you for that. If you believe that Emu is, I have the exact same idea as you. If you believe Blackbeard is, I can see it happening. So yeah, comment down below, keep it civil, and I love you guys for the support. I shall see you in the next video. Goodbye.